Hi everyone, the book that I have been reading this week is Amelia Bedelia's First Apple Pie. It says, Amelia Bedelia was visiting her grandparents. It was a glorious autumn afternoon, the perfect day to rake leaves into piles and run around the yard. Fall is in the air, said Granddad. Granddad and Amelia Bedelia looked up. So are the birds, said Amelia Bedelia. V-W. What are they trying to spell? See that up there? V-W. Just then Amelia Bedelia's grandma came outside. Quick, said Granddad, look busy. But it was too late. Hey, lazy bones, Grandma said jokingly. If you're just going to stand around, I've got a job for you. What do you need? Granddad asked. Apples, said Grandma. I made pie dough. If you'll get some apples, I can teach Amelia Bedelia how to bake an apple pie. Grandma's apple pie was Amelia Bedelia's favorite. Hooray, she yelled. Race you to the car. She started to run, but tripped over a branch and landed right in the pile of leaves. Whoosh! How was your trip? Asked Granddad as he helped her up. Fun, she said. Fall is in the air and on the ground too. Granddad smiled and said, watch your step. Amelia Bedelia tried to watch her steps, but it made her dizzy to look down at her feet all the time. Amelia Bedelia and Granddad were already in the car when Grandma called out, be sure to pick up Granny Smith. Who is Granny Smith? Is she helping us make the pie? Amelia Bedelia said, or asked. You bet, Granddad said. We couldn't do it without her. Amelia Bedelia and Granddad drove out into the country. Your supermarket is far away, said Amelia Bedelia. We aren't going to the supermarket, said Granddad. We'll get our apples at the farmer's market. What? Asked Amelia Bedelia. Do we need to buy a farmer? No, said Granddad, laughing. Their apples are much fresher. Apples are good for me, right? Asked Amelia Bedelia. Oh, yes, said Granddad. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. They're good for your teeth, too. Folks call them nature's toothbrush. Hey, Granddad, said Amelia Bedelia, if I eat an apple a day, I won't have to go to the doctor or dentist ever again. Granddad smiled. I wished it worked that way, Pumpkin, he said. Granddad picked up a bright green apple, polished it on his jacket, and tossed it to Amelia Bedelia. Nice catch, he said. Meet Granny Smith. Amelia Bedelia took a loud, crunchy bite. Granny is yummy, she said. Bushel baskets overflowed with red, yellow, orange, pink, and green apples. Some apples wore stripes or spots or splotches. The colors reminded Amelia Bedelia of autumn. While Granddad chose apples to buy, Amelia Bedelia read the names out loud. One kind was called Delicious, but they all looked tasty to her. And here's some of the different names. There's Green Sleeves, Icy Duchess, and Royal Gala, Golden Nugget. There's that Granny Smith, and there's that Delicious. When they got home, Grandma went right to work coring and peeling the apples. Amelia Bedelia measured the peels to see which one was the longest. Grandma cut each apple into 2 pieces, then into 4 pieces, and then into 8 pieces. Finally, she sprinkled sugar and cinnamon on the slices. Next, Grandma pulled out all of her pie pans, hunting for just the right one. Amelia Bedelia found a tiny pan. Is this a toy? She asked. No, said Grandma. This is a real pie pan. It's just really small. Aha, here's the one I want. Now please get me a little flour, Sugar Plum. Amelia Bedelia spied a small flower on the windowsill and she picked it up. "Here you go, Grandma," she said. "Thanks, sweetie," said Grandma. Then she showed Amelia Bedelia where she kept the flour she used for baking. Grandma rolled out the dough. It got flatter and thinner. It got rounder and bigger. Grandma said, "Careful, watch your fingers." Amelia Bedelia took her hands off the table. She watched her fingers very carefully. They looked pretty boring. She wondered why she had to do this to make an apple pie. "Now we need a sprinkle of flour," said Grandma. Amelia Bedelia reached into the sack of flour, grabbed a handful, and sprinkled it all over their heads. Grandma laughed. "Not on us," she said, "on the dough." Amelia Bedelia sprinkled some on the dough, too. "At last," said Grandma, "we're ready to put this pie together." And that's exactly what Grandma and Amelia Bedelia did. Then Grandma popped the pie into the oven, set the timer, and started to clean up the kitchen. That's when Amelia Bedelia had an idea. She took the leftover dough and rolled out 2 small circles. She put one in the little pie pan, filled it with the extra apples, and plopped the other circle on top. Then she crimped the edges all around. A smidgen of dough was left, so she made a little flower, a tiny daisy, to decorate the top. "Your mom and dad will be here soon," said Grandma. "Then we'll have a pie party." "Yippee," said Amelia Bedelia. Granddad heard the commotion and came into the kitchen. "What are we celebrating?" he said. "Honey," said Grandma, "Amelia Bedelia made her first apple pie." After Grandma took her pie out of the oven, Amelia Bedelia carefully and secretly slid hers in. "I am going to set this outside to cool," said Grandma. It was time to get ready for the party. Grandma hummed as she set the table. Soon Granddad was whistling the same tune. Outside, the birds were chirping and tweeting and singing like mad. "Listen," said Amelia Bedelia. "It sounds like the birds are having a party too." "My pie!" exclaimed Grandma. They all ran outside. The pie was covered with birds. "Scram!" hollered Grandma. "Shoo! Shoo!" Amelia Bedelia took off her shoe and handed it to Grandma, but it was too late. "Our pie," said Amelia Bedelia. "Gone," said Grandma. Just then Amelia Bedelia's parents arrived. Amelia Bedelia's dad stared at the empty pie pan. "Gee," he said, "couldn't you wait for us?" "The birds ate our pie," said Amelia Bedelia. "What birds?" asked her mom. "I think they were swallows," said Granddad. "They sure were," said Amelia Bedelia. "They swallowed the whole thing." "Well, sweetheart," said Amelia Bedelia's mother, "let's imagine how good it would have tasted while we eat our ice cream." The whole family tried to enjoy the ice cream and not think about the pie, but that was impossible. "We made the best pie," said Amelia Bedelia. "It was a thing of beauty," said Grandma. "It would have been delicious," said Granddad. "It was a perfect pie," said Amelia Bedelia. Her lower lip trembled. She let out a sob. "You know," said Amelia Bedelia's father, "just hearing you talk about that pie makes me think I can smell a fresh baked pie coming out of the oven." "My pie!" exclaimed Amelia Bedelia. They raced to the kitchen. Grandma took the tiny pie out of the oven and set it on the table. There it was, bubbling hot and baked to perfection. They all gathered around and gazed at it as though it were a brand new baby. "It's absolutely perfect," said Amelia Bedelia's mother. "Just like Grandma's," said Granddad. "Only smaller," said Amelia Bedelia. "And you made it all by yourself," said Grandma. "This time," said Amelia Bedelia's father, "let's let the pie cool down in the house." But no one could wait. Grandma cut tiny pieces for everyone. She took one bite and declared, "This is the best apple pie I have ever tasted." Amelia Bedelia's smile was so big that it was hard for her to eat. "Thank you, Grandma," she said. "And thank you, Granny." "Granny who?" said Amelia Bedelia's mother. "Granny Smith," said Amelia Bedelia. "She made all of our apples in the first place." And I like at the end of the book, they have a recipe there for apple pie. So if you ever check this book out at the library, you could read that recipe and maybe have someone help you make the pie as well. There are lots of Amelia Bedelia books in the library if you enjoyed that, and you can check one out next time you come in. See you guys.